I'd like to call a village board meeting for the Village of Cary for Tuesday, June 7th, 2016 to order with roll call, please.
Dudek,
Here.
Cavelli,
Here.
Chapman,
Here.
Kraus,
Here.
McAlpine.
Here.
Kozler.
Here.
Thank you. Tonight, we are honored to have Troop 160 here. They're going to present our colors and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. If we could please rise and they could present the colors.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Troop 160 will be joining us this evening because they're working on their citizenship and government merit badge, community badge. Have you guys been here through the tour, right? I knew you guys looked familiar. So welcome. And we will now move to the open forum where the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. I have a few people that have signed in. Did you have something other than the agenda that you wanted to talk about? If not, I will just call you when the item comes up for discussion. You could just let me know that that's when you wanted to talk. Okay? I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items number 1 through 13.
So moved. Second.
A roll call, please.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Cavelli,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
Dudek,
Yes.
Kozler,
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 016-06-05, granting a variation to allow a 6-foot residential fence in the exterior side yard for the property located at 1 Walnut Ridge Court.
So moved. Second.
Hey, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor. Village Board. Excuse me. This evening's request is, again, a reconsideration or review of the proposed fence variation for the property at 1 Walnut Ridge Court. Petitioner is proposing to install a 6-foot fence in the exterior side yard on the property, which fronts onto 3 Oaks Road. By code, a fence needs to be installed at the 30-foot building setback line. Petitioner is proposing to install the fence at a 20-foot setback and then exceed the height limitation of 5 feet to go up to 6 feet in this location. Previously, the item was reviewed by the Committee of the Whole in late May. This image here shows the fenceable area where the fence would be permissible on the subject property and surrounding properties. The subject property, again, is located along 3 Oaks Road. Properties which would have a rear yard facing 3 Oaks Road would be allowed to install a fence at the property line. Since this is an exterior side yard, they are required to install the fence at the building setback line. This image shows the proposed location of the fence would be about 20 feet behind the existing sidewalk along the property line, which would be about 55 feet from the curb line along 3 Oaks Road right-of-way. Proposed fence would be similar to the images shown here, a 6-foot fence with a trellis feature at the top to provide screening of the property from 3 Oaks Road. Petitioner is also requesting the 20-foot setback due to existing pines that are trees that are located on the property, so it would not impact their existing location. It would be located with between the existing pines on the property and the evergreens that already provide screening of the property from the roadway. This is a couple of images that show the existing conditions of the roadway looking from Three Oaks Road towards the site. And again, matter was reviewed during a public hearing on May 17th before the committee of the whole. General review of testimony and documentation provided at that hearing. The committee of the whole recommended in general support of the request. Motion would be to approve a variation to install a 6-foot fence with a setback of 20 feet and exterior side yard for the property located at 1 Walnut Ridge Court. Petitioner is also here to provide any questions, answer any questions you may have regarding the proposal as well.
We vetted this pretty thoroughly at the committee of the whole. Were there any additional questions for the petitioner? He is here. No? Thank you, Brian. Roll call, please.
Kozler,
Yes.
Kraus,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Dudek,
No.
Cavelli,
Yes.
Chapman.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Dooley, you have it. Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve ordinance 016-06-06, granting a map amendment to the Village of Cary zoning map from R2 Single Family Residential to M Limited Manufacturing for the vacant parcel on Cary Avenue identified as PIN number 20-18-376-072.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Hey, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor. Village Board. Excuse me. The item that's up for review this evening is a proposed map amendment of a property located on Cary Avenue. It doesn't have an address, so it's identified via the PIN for the property. The request was reviewed by the zoning board in May during a public hearing. At that time, the zoning board did recommend denial of the request based off public testimony and documentation that was provided at that meeting. Since that meeting, the petitioner has approached staff and has discussed their options regarding the property and would like to have the item be reconsidered or referred back to the ZPA for additional discussion or an additional public hearing so they can have an opportunity to provide additional documentation for the request as far as plans or exhibits as far as how the site might be developed from a standpoint with the rezoning. I can go into more detail as far as the request that's was already presented to the ZPA and what's in the packet this evening, but that is the petitioner's request at this point.
Brian, ZPA has to consider everyone based on, I think was it 7 criteria?
Correct. There's certain standards that are within the zoning ordinance that they, for every action that the ZPA reviews, whether it be a conditional use or a map amendment, there are certain standards that have to be reviewed and met in order for them to support that recommendation or change from that standpoint.
What I didn't see was which specific one did they use to deny this request?
The discussion really was more of a concern without having a plan or discussion or of what potentially could be built there. From a zoning standpoint, the petitioner just submitted a petition to rezone the property and didn't provide plans or exhibits that indicated what the site would be developed as. So most of the concerns that the ZPA had discussed or expressed was not knowing, from a rezoning it straight to manufacturing use, the type of uses that would be permitted there, not knowing where the building would be sited and things along those lines was generally the discussion that was held as far as the unknown of what could be built there. The petitioner did have or has parties that are interested in purchasing the property for manufacturing uses. They did not have a plan, showing how that site would be developed when it went through the process. So that was a concern primarily that the ZPA had at that time.
Thank you.
Did you want to present some of the additions to what they were planning on doing that would make it a compelling argument to send it back to the ZPA?
The petitioner can have additional documentation that they brought. I can go through and really show what was the proposal or the request. I have not seen plans formally submitted to our office to review, but they do have had gone through previously with planning on the property where they had plans that were drawn up 10 years ago or so for other sites. And they have, petitioner can speak to other interests that they have in the property for uses. Essentially looking at the property, it's a vacant lot that's on the corner, or at where Jandis Road and Cary Avenue kind of intersect or turn into one each other. Half of the property is already zoned manufacturing, the other half is zoned for single family, or the third of it is zoned for single family use. So the rezoning is just for the portion of the site that was a single family
residential.
before, correct. This slide shows the three parcels that comprise the existing lot or vacant lot. Lot 3 or parcel 3 is the lot that's proposed to be rezoned. It's about 11,000 square feet or 25% of the total lot area. This map would show what the existing zoning is, identifies where the property is located at, and if the rezoning was approved, what the new contours of the zoning districts would be. These are the map amendment standards that are listed within the zoning ordinance that would need to be met or for consideration of a map amendment, similar to other requests from a zoning standpoint that we look at. We need to satisfy for a proper rezoning of the property. And again, the public hearing was held on May 26th. The ZPA did have a 6-0 vote against the proposal. The petitioner is requesting at this point to have the matter referred back to the CPA for an additional public hearing, which we re-notify or provide notice of, and provide them the opportunity to provide additional documentation or evidence to support their rezoning request.
Any thoughts, questions from the board?
I would like to hear some of the reasons that it should go back.
Yeah.
You know, we have.
Could we have the petitioner come up and answer some of those questions, and I'll let the public speak when she's done making her presentation.
Hello.
Hello. You could just state your name and address for the record, please.
Lori Fuchs, 353 Mildred Avenue in Cary. I don't know what you want me to say.
Did you want to talk about what type of development or type of project you'd like to put on that piece of property?
Yes, when you say it's zone manufacturing, everybody thinks that you're going to make nails or screws or something, instead of it being like a condo, like what is that, 300 Jandis Road? That is what these plans show. The only thing that has to be changed on these plans is the exterior to be more conformed with going from your manufacturing to, what do you call it, residential. I also took a picture that the elevation, even on the residential lot, is equal to the manufacturing lot, where the house at 404 Cary, which would abut the manufacturing lot, is at a very lower level. So putting a residential piece of property on this high elevation, it wouldn't conform to residential. The property is all, when I bought it, it was called farmland according to McHenry County. And I have some plans. I don't know if any of you know where 300 Jandis Road is.
I know right where that is.
Okay. And that's a nice, neat building. However, we would ask the people, whoever decided to build that, to put in more trees and stuff, which is normal for a residential area. But I'd like to really go back and explore all this with the ZBA again. I didn't know what was expected of me at the time. And you also had 3 new board members that night. So,
Just as what she's explaining is, in those of you that aren't familiar with Cary Point Industrial Park, when you first come off of Jandis Road and you take a right onto Cary Point, there's a building on your left-hand side that's a all brick, like I think it's 4 units, condo type. It's warehouse.
Yes.
It's warehouse office. They're very small. They're meant to they're for for small businesses, family-owned. I think what's over there now is a T-shirt printing place.
The
I think
balloons.
that's where the guy does the balloons out of there. There used to be a kitchen counter fabricator that was over there. So it's that type of a facility that, I think that's what you're intending to
Yes.
build on the site that you, is that the type of construction that you're looking for? Or is that the masonry construction?
We haven't gotten that far, but that is the style of building, that it's not going to be two-story and it's not going to be where you're going to have a manufacturing part to it. It would be very small individual businesses, startup businesses.
How many units are you anticipating that would fit there?
I think when I went through architectural review many years ago, there was either 4 or 6, and I'm not sure. I vaguely remember seeing 6 doors.
Yeah.
I think that's what's up at Cary Point and Jandis.
Lori,
Yeah.
it said that at the ZPA that you didn't really present anything in terms of a product, what we placed on the property. If you go back to ZPA, would you have something more updated?
We certainly hope so. The Realtor
That would be
is
able
here
to-
with me tonight, and we have had several phone calls. So we have a meeting set up with Brian to interview one of them, so.
And do we know when the next zoning and planning meeting that they would be considering for this? Okay.
Because we have to re-notify everyone. Sure.
The next ZPA meeting, if it were to be reconsidered or referred back, would be in July at some point, either July 14th or 28th. There would need to be re-notification of the hearing, so notice would need to be mailed in the newspaper as well. So if it's referred back from this board to the ZPA, it might be without a date certain, then they can come forward with a project at that point with more plans on when those are developed versus having a date certain and having it need to be continued again.
I think the latter option with not a date certain is probably better so that you can more formalize the specifics of what you're planning to do. It's very difficult for the board to evaluate whether or not your proposed development is going to fit within the neighborhood without having specific idea what's going to happen.
Right, but you really can't sell the property unless they know that they can get this extra residential lot. So,
A lot of
I mean,
time-
it's like
that's why
chasing tail or whatever.
That's why real estate contracts have contingencies for
Right.
zoning.
You're right. But anyway, I just wanted to give you an idea of what would be on the property, but it would conform whether by exterior facade to make it more
But-
going down into the subdivision, it wouldn't be so stark
But
like
if you,
it is.
if you don't own it when it gets developed, you won't have control over what goes there.
But if I don't have to sell it unless I know what's going to go there too.
Yeah, yeah. Got you there.
I still think that.
I mean,
That's
I
why-
mean, you know, I
that's why
wouldn't
the
go.
end user- The end user is the better person to apply for a zoning change.
Exactly. But I own the piece of property and I'd like to be able to, make sure that a house doesn't go up there because it wouldn't fit in. It wouldn't. And it would take away from the other 2 lots.
Does anybody have any other questions for this petitioner?
I just think that when I read through all of the ZPA, it looked to me like the concerns were really about the unknown use of the future of the property.
Right.
And until I think, I'm going to have to reiterate, until you have a better idea, yes, you can only sell to whoever you want, but the reality is that someone buys it from you, if it is changed in zoning, you could say that's what you want them to do, but you don't have a guarantee of that at that point, because you have sold it. What if they retain the property for a year or 2?
You're right, but it would also leave a vacant lot that would be of no value to anyone if it stays just the 2 that are already zoned M2. So I'm trying to work it so everything is.
I understand.
And I could, if
we have until July. I'm sure we may have a potential. We did have one, and then it took too long, and he couldn't wait. But we could have everything ready by then, at least a drawing or something of what was going on. So that's all I'm asking, is just another try.
It's a different
All right, I'm going to open it up to a couple people that have signed in. Forgive me, I can't read your writing.
Thank
It's
you.
a Reese. Is that Ed?
Hi, my name's Ed Reese. I live at 405 Cary Avenue in Cary. I didn't bring any information to, dispute what was just being said. I thought this was just going to be a formal hearing to approve what the zoning board had already gone through when they voted unanimously to reject this concept. Our basic contention when we went and met with the zoning board is placing or injecting a commercial building in a residential subdivision will, in this case, will ruin the atmosphere of that particular subdivision. I believe you mentioned that you're familiar with the neighborhood where Jandis Road and Cary Avenue come together. There's a very distinct separation between the Cary Point Industrial Park and the residential neighborhood that's there. When Mr. and Mrs. Fuchs originally bought that specific lot, there was a house on it. It is a residential area. I don't know when the other two parcels were rezoned commercial. I'm going to try to investigate that now too. But we would like to keep our subdivision as a residential subdivision. There could be a home put there. Just because Illinois is flat doesn't mean the rest of the country is flat. Houses are built on hills all the time. I just ask that you consider strongly the recommendation of the zoning board. And your idea about not knowing who's going to occupy that building. I have a business in Barrington. We rent from a building owner, and the occupants of that particular building have transitioned so many times in the number of years. And the current landowner has absolutely no say over who's going to occupy it initially, or who's going to occupy it 5 years from now, or 10 years from now. There's a number. The subdivision is in transition now where many of the homeowners have become older. There's younger families moving in, children living there. An industrial building, it just does not belong in a residential neighborhood. So, thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Yeah, my name is Jim Took. I live at 416 Cary Avenue. It's right on the corner down Janus there. The reason I moved to Cary, I lived in Lyons for 22 years, and my wife wanted to move further up here. I was disgusted with the industrial type situation down there. We had to close our windows, because of different things from McCook and everywhere. So we came up here to get away from all of that. And we've got 3 lots, buildings on, I got 1 vacant lot that, we have our gardens and everything. That borders next to the house that's next to that, which is owned by the Fuchs, which is a rental property, so they really don't care what goes in there. And so basically, if this is zoned where it can go industrial, it's my understanding that they can build a building within 15 feet of their border line. So that means my fence or my property would be within 75 feet approximately, I'm just guessing, of a building, the actual physical building itself. And I have no idea what they put in there. Nobody can tell you what's going to go in there. You don't know who's going to put anything in there. Could be flammable stuff. You don't know what's going to go in there. I just prefer not to have anything like that, next to me. I moved here to get away from that. So that's about all I got to say. Hopefully you guys consider that.
Thank you. Bruce Basso?
I'm just trying to figure that out.
Bruce Basso, 339 Mildred Avenue. I live down in the subdivision there. Lived there for 50 years. I am also the realtor that's marketing the property, and I am experienced in a certain amount of building and zoning, and I've done building myself. This is kind of an unusual situation. It's a hybrid lot. It's one lot that's got two types of zoning on it. The majority of it is already industrial, where they could build industrial on it. The part that is residential would have to be subdivided off again now, and it wouldn't be an ideal situation for a residential lot. I'd have trouble selling that as residential. But if you look at the stage of the whole program, the majority of the lot that would be industrial is up the street from the neighbors that have spoken, and it's much higher out of sight. And the left side of the property that we're talking about is zoned residential. Now, just from my building experience, the flat area on the top would be the ideal place for an industrial building, which adapts itself better to a level area. As the hill falls off on that, the city would no doubt require retention area and so on. That would be the ideal place to put it. And it would be less, it would also give a break between that and the houses, and the people, across the street wouldn't even, see the building from their house. The other thing that I might point out is when you're going for zoning of a property, say it was all residential and you were going to try to make it industrial, it's a little different breed there, because the fact that it is mostly industrial at this point doesn't have as much of an impact to it. And if somebody bought the property the way it is and said, okay, I can only build on the industrial part, that has to go before the village, meet all the codes. The village has to prove what it looks like at that point. If it was something that was really bad for the neighborhood, or ugly looking building, or use that was repugnant to the city has total control over that. And I know it has to be built according to code. Plus, the village also dictates landscaping. And if they call for bushes along that side, the whole back and the other end of the property is a tall, screening of bushes there. The fact that there probably won't be any building right at that spot, and a nice landscaping. A very nice, setting can be, if it is going to be, industrial anyway. But
Excuse me, Jake, could you put up the map, or the Exhibit B that's in our packet? Is that on there? Just so everybody's understanding what we're talking about.
That lower end would, probably wouldn't be where the main building would sit anyway. It would probably be up closer where the access is readily available to Cary Road there.
Who owns the property just, I guess that would be kind of like northwest of there, that vacant piece?
Northwest of there would, that's the auto restoration.
Does he own that second part too?
He owns the vacant lot in there. And then behind the property in question here, there's a fenced-in outside storage facility, which isn't going to affect anything, because if somebody built a building on the other side of that, they wouldn't see it to begin with, and it would have no effect to neighbors on that whole end of the property. And if the other end were just landscaped and possibly retention, it could be a very nice looking setting for a building to go there. Somebody just builds a building on it, it may curtail the size of the building by a little bit, but not much. The amount that would go on this lot could be maybe 10 or 20 feet of building, more or less, wouldn't really have any impact. It was really designed as industrial in that area, and there is a conversion there. I drive by it every day, and I myself wouldn't have any problem with that. I have a very nice house, down in the subdivision there, and been there a long time and feel very comfortable with the situation.
I guess I would only take issue with one thing you said, is that you said it was designed to be commercial and industrial.
No, industrial.
Yeah. There are 3 different legal parcels that are included in the property your client owns, and 2 of them go with one subdivision, which was presumably subdivided originally as manufacturing.
Yes.
The 3rd parcel, the one you're seeking to re-subdivide, is part of a different subdivision. And that different subdivision that it's a component of appears to be, you know, has developed historically as residential. So I don't know how they acquired the property, if it was all at one time or if it was piecemeal. But if they acquired it piecemeal, they acquired the property that straddles 2 different subdivisions.
I understand.
Would you like to see this?
What is
I
that?
don't understand it. This is about.
I'm not going to read it right now.
Yeah.
Oh, this is about what each parcel is, and it says that it's C.R. Jandis Fox River Grove Edition, C.R. Jandis Fox River Grove Edition, C.R. Jandis Fox River Grove Edition.
Oh.
Parcel 10, I don't know which one that is, but, no, parcel 3 is German subdivision.
Right. German subdivision is a residential
And I
subdivision.
believe, I don't know if it's still that way.
Could we have you speak into the mic, because we're taping this, and we need to have a recording.
This goes back to 1967, so I don't know if it's changed. I believe on a map, I did see that there was a change to Jandis subdivision. And that would make sense because Lot 2 is Jandis Fox River Edition and Lot 3 is German's. So the 2 that are in the industrial park are considered to be Jandis subdivision, but not the other one. I mean, the one that we're trying to rezone.
Exactly.
And yet the house next door is Jandis subdivision.
Oh.
Which one is?
And there's a
Small
house
one?
at 404.
This one, Jan?
It's the small one just beyond the red lines that you see there. Is that the rental property you were
Yes.
talking about?
Yes,
Do you own that property as
Yes.
well?
and then when I bought these, Mr. Malucky gave me these McHenry County Office of Assessment, and they all show that it was just farmland buildings and farm buildings on all 3 lots. And there was nothing different to any of them. And that's when I bought the lot. So I don't know what's going on.
When we say Jandis subdivision, and we're referring to the northern, or the top 2 parcels that are manufacturing right now.
Yeah.
When we say Jandis, are we talking about the industrial park is kind of called Jandis subdivision? I know the area down by the river, we call it Jandis subdivision, but is it
And
officially
most of it
Gearman's?
is. There's narrow subdivision, I don't even know that German's subdivision is even there anymore.
Could you, ma'am, could you come, if you want to adjust, you're more than welcome to speak. We just need to have you come up here, please.
I don't know.
Just in summation, an industrial building's probably gonna be built there anyway. As a nice layout and giving more side lot line, toward, the rental house there, and so on. I think there's gonna be minimum impact with it. And, the basis that it's already industrial on it, whatever's built there has to be built according to code and in an approved situation on it. We're not really making that much impact to the situation from, what it could be right now. Thank you.
Ma'am, did you want to come up and address the board?
Trustee Kraus's comment. The 2 properties that are currently zoned industrial, they're part of the Jandis subdivision, so that industrial park was part of that subdivision. The Gearman subdivision is more of the residential area that's to the south lot, so that property they're looking to rezone is part of the Gearman subdivision, and also the rest of the residential area was created as part of that same residential subdivision. So it's referred to commonly as the Jandis subdivision, but it's Gearman's is the official name for the subdivision.
So it's her rental house part of Gearman, or is it part of Jandis?
The rental house is part of Gearman's subdivision. The actual plat of
I
subdivision
understand.
has Gearman's.
I understand. We're just saying that's the dividing line.
No, it's the residential lot currently that they're seeking to rezone.
Right, that's what I'm saying, this is the dividing line.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
So if
I'm with
you're
you.
looking at this image here where the mouse is located, this line that shows
Right.
the lot line of this parcel here is the one they're looking to re-subdivision, part
Right,
of the
and
Gearman
that's-
subdivision. And to the west is the Jandis.
So it's the next one.
Correct.
Brian, the legal description for Lot 3 doesn't indicate this, but I'll ask if you know. I don't believe Gearman subdivision was a re-subdivision of Jandis subdivision, was it?
Gearman's was first, Jandis came later.
Okay.
So are we looking to approve this, or are we looking to approve for it to go back to the ZBA?
That's it.
Well, we're going to end up, if it's the board's decision, we will end up amending this motion to send it back to the ZPA if that's what the board wants. But, or if you want to vote on it as it is, that's completely up to you.
And let me ask a question then. If we voted on it as is and we said, let's just say we said no, let's just say there was the vote, it was no, would the petitioner then have an option when they have a specific plan to go back to the ZPA because they have a change? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out
If the-
logistically what's happening here.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, if in the future, let's say it was a year down the road or 6 months down the road, I'm trying to look at the long term here as to what a decision here today means.
If there's a recommendation and the board votes to deny the request, there would be, per our zoning ordinance, there's a 1-year time
One-year
period
wait.
that they would not be able to resubmit the same petition.
Unless
they
there's
came
an
back.
extenuating change or something?
Correct. So unless the board were to approve a resolution that there were significant changes, the board could approve a resolution to approve them to go back to the process, and then they could resubmit a petition within that 1-year time period.
So-
Brian, go ahead.
So if if the petitioner, the current petitioner now sells the piece of property, if it's denied tonight, and the petitioner sells the property, can that new property owner come back at that time under a different,
It would be the same request to
But
rezone it.
stuff the way to year?
Correct. But that would be something that if the board decided that was extenuating circumstance that made a change, you could approve a resolution that would allow them to resubmit, go through the process.
So here are the options right now. The board can vote on the application as is presented. The board can refer it back to the ZPA to a date certain or to no date, or the applicant can withdraw the application and reapply when there's more information to support the application.
Trustee Dudek, you had a question?
The third part, Adam, is kind of where I was going. I mean, this is, to me, the potential exists for the rezoning, but you have to have something to look at to approve. If she was going to build a speculative building and have the financing and all to do that, then she would present that to the ZPA or to us to take a look at, and we would make a determination. Or in the case that she sells it, a prospective buyer would, to your point, Adam, have a contingency that he could come here and get the zoning changed to build what he wants to build. Otherwise, the lots are of no value to him. So I really think we're just talking in circles here, accomplishing nothing until such time that the present owner either, A, to me, is going to build something and has concrete plans, which today she does not, or somebody comes along and wants to buy it and says, this is what I want to build. Until such time, I don't know, discussion should be finished, in my opinion.
Trustee Costo, you have an opinion on this?
No, I agree with what Trustee Dudek said. I think that these changes of zoning really should be with the end user, the end owner, and we're sort of jumping the gun here. If she had a project she had to build, we could look at that, but she does not. So I would lean towards not sending it back towards the CPA or having her withdraw.
Trustee Costo, do you have any comments?
Wasn't the manufacturing property just recently for sale? Did you just recently buy that, or did you own that and then take it off the market? But I thought just recent, like this past year, though, I thought I'd seen signs up there saying that it was manufactured or industrial or something. Were you trying to sell it then at the time? That you bought the manufacturing property?
2 years ago. But she bought them, she owned all of them.
Excuse me, Mr. Basso, could you come up to the microphone, please?
She owned the three lots there, and 2 of them were zoned industrial and the other one residential. And because of the hybrid of the situation and getting 3 tax bills, she had it combined into 1 lot. That's what makes it, a hybrid lot at this point. I understand the village has to determine, that it's all zoned the same. It's just a matter whether they would accept the whole lot as one and say that's what it's going to be, an industrial building. Would it look nicer if it was all done together with the tension there and landscaping? Or leave a piece of land that's almost unusable or impractical for anything. It would depreciate the property tremendously if she did that. She didn't do anything wrong. It's just the way, things fell, and trying to put it together as a good project.
Trustee Chapman?
I've got mixed emotions. I mean, I'm very sensitive to property owners being able to sell their property. I watched what happened out west with Marengo and the farms. So Lori, I do sympathize with you, and I understand that without a zoning change, it's going to make it very hard to market it. I get it. But I can't support it, changing that 1 lot from a residential and putting it in there until we know, something more about it. I just can't.
Trustee Cavalli?
Yeah, I think she should go with the second or third option. It's the way it currently stands. I'm not in favor of it.
If somebody were to purchase the lot and then have to come back to the village and go through the whole zoning operation, you no doubt have legal expense. You have time involved with it, and there's people that it could hinder the sale of a lot of, especially if they get into a situation where they have to spend money not knowing if they were going to get the zoning. Again, you're into a chicken egg situation. I don't know what I'm marketing at this point, and I can't tell the man, yes, you're going to get the zoning, and for them to take that time and gamble the money on getting the zoning while they're waiting to close, you're going to cut out a large part of the possibilities. And it's been a difficult, property to market anyway.
Yeah.
Especially in this particular era.
I understand, but I think the board is kind of clear on the fact that they'd like to see some sort of a plan, that what it would look like, how much of the property it would encroach upon their neighborhood, if that parcel is even going to be, if it's a parking lot, or if it's, something that's going to be landscaped, if it's part of it, I have no idea. That's what I think that the board's frustration is, because they don't know what they would be rezoning. And it's very important that we have an understanding of what we're going to be rezoning.
It seems to
So
me
I
it's-
think that from the recommendation that the board is giving, that in your best interest, you should probably withdraw your petition so you can come back at a later date when you have something a little bit more concrete. Otherwise, if I call for a vote, I believe it will fail, and you'll have to wait an entire year to come back.
If you were going to a next piece of property, say off a Three Oaks Road or something like that, and they said, we'd like to make this, industrial, somebody might, show how subdivision might be laid out, but what actually goes on it usually isn't, part of the, the consideration on it. Am I wrong? Yeah.
If we were to annex new property for where a development was anticipated, we could negotiate a contract with them so that both sides know in advance what is going to be developed there. We would have a plan that we would be able to enforce.
The layout of it for an industrial park might be one thing, but they can't tell you who's going to buy lots and all those, buy all those lots and exactly what's going to go on them the consideration is usually if they zone something industrial and then somebody buys one of those industrial lots, it goes to the village, and the village has the say-so at that point. And if there's something that's, you know, really not acceptable, that's the time they can knock it down or limit it or change the shape or location of it on the lots or require landscaping screening and so on. But that's like the second stage of property that's already zoned. You zone the, you know, property, say like on 3 Oaks Road already for retail, but you don't know what's going to go on it ahead of time. Nobody knows how that's going to, you know, be laid out. It's really two different questions.
You know, I guess I'd just like to ask, either the petitioner withdraws or we have a vote. Otherwise, we'll be dialoguing this all night and going nowhere.
So if you come up to the microphone, please.
My name is Diane Took. I'm Jim Took's wife. And we live right on that corner property where the red lines, you go further down where the turn is for Marquette Street. My neighbor across the street looks right at that property. Lori's property has that one lot above hers, but so does ours. So that could be sold together because I know that she's going to be selling off all her properties because she's going to live in Arizona. So it's just a matter of, she bought the lot and so did we. We bought it from Mr. Malucky, the man that owned all that property to begin with. We put $75,000 into our house to have a nice house because it was an EGAD house. And when we drove up, my husband said, oh no. But I talked him into it. And I think we've created a very nice, lovely entrance to the subdivision, even though we can't always get to it every minute of the day. But the traffic coming down the hill is terrible. People don't, it says no outlet, but people come down anyway. And then big trucks end up turning around down there. So if there is a situation where there may be warehousing or semi-trucks going in there or any kind of a truck, they'll be coming down there to turn around in front of my house. I can guarantee it. And I don't appreciate the ones that come down there now as it is. So
Okay.
I'm just saying, there's a lot of possibilities for selling that land, and it's not all zoned commercial right now. And so the for sale sign is wrong, leads to false advertisement.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Yes.
My name is Lisa Barrett. One thing that has not come up, there's only one road leading to our subdivision, and that is it. My children, all the kids ride their bikes. We don't have sidewalks. It's already a danger. We put industrial there. My son already is riding in the road. I have to say, scares me to death all the time to get up the hill there. Now we're gonna put in more traffic, industrial trucks in and out possibly. I'm not saying that would be, but that's the only way in and out to our house. And putting something there that's not residential will just cause more traffic, more danger. These kids are playing there. And just keep that in mind. We only have one way in and out of our neighborhood, and that is it. That's all.
Thank you. Well, I'll ask the petitioner one more time. Do you want to withdraw your petition? Otherwise, I have to call for a vote. Pardon me?
For now, yes.
You want to withdraw your, what does she have to do?
She has to say it into the microphone.
With withdrawing my petition, what does it entail? Just that I can or
You can
have-
reapply.
Or have the future builder reapply?
Right, exactly.
Okay,
Okay?
that's fine.
And we'll take care of that, Brian. Brian will be in touch with you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for your patience with it.
Table a motion.
Pardon me?
Table.
Yeah. Could I have a motion to?
Adam about that. Should I have this table? Withdraw the motion.
I would like to have somebody withdraw the motion.
Whoever made the motion.
Who made the motion?
Chapman
Jeff?
and Kraus.
I seconded it, I thought.
You did. Chapman made the motion.
Would you
Yeah.
please withdraw the motion?
Yes.
What? Okay.
Will you second that, Jeff?
Who's on first?
I got so many meetings left, got to give them a hard.
Thank you. Jeez, my heart just sank. After all that? Welcome back, Chief. Okay. All right.
Boy Scouts are getting a good learning experience here.
Cronies.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for your patience on this. We're going to skip down to, there's no administrator's report right now. We're going to go down to the department head reports with Public Works. Eric?
All right, in lieu of a monthly report, we prepared a summary of the last fiscal year, so it'll be an annual report. Real briefly, if you would like a hard copy, I can submit it later. But in summary, it was a good year last year. We had a new 5-year labor contract with our union, SEIU, which consolidated our 12 job classifications down to 5. We've embarked on a new training performance stipend program, which bolsters our current roster of licensed wastewater and water treatment operators and pesticide operators. We had one employee just recently receive his license as a pesticide operator. That was Corey Hawk, so we appreciated him going after that one. And we have 4 individuals going after some other certifications in the process as well. Street maintenance was busy as ever. Just the numbers are there, but we maintain our programs of planting trees, trimming trees, cleaning inlets, fixing potholes, and removing tree stumps. Winter operations, we had, by all summations, a mild winter, but it still added up to 24 winter call-outs, 32 inches of snow, about 1,700 tons of road salt used, which is actually about average. Despite the lower snowfall amount, we still use an average amount of salt. And we hauled about 2,300 cubic yards, mainly from the downtown and the cul-de-sacs. Water and sand, we're continuing our water meter program. We installed almost 600 last year, fiscal year. Our normal production, just from a sense of scale of what we do, drinking water treated for your homes, over 507 million gallons of water was treated last year, and over 485 million gallons in turn of wastewater was treated at the sewage plant. We added our new online service request system. So you can see there's been a steady amount of service requests in blue from the public works categories. And then about mid-year, we also added and brought online FOIA requests, and the Community Development Department added property maintenance service requests. So the volume has been steady, so we're still getting continued use of that. Road program was completed last year with a significant amount of asphalt roadways repaved and some new drainage improvements with pipe under drain installed behind the curbs. Our Three Oaks Road project, quick update on that. The Council of Mayors voted to include the B-list projects into the program, which is where our Three Oaks Road project was sitting. So it's now being funded for that $1.5 million, and it was set in the 2019 program year. So we will continue our design on schedule, but we'll be ready for a 2019 construction. And then Sunset Crest, we have out on the street the bids for the grading work for the detention area at the locations of the former homes that were purchased with the federal grant. So we hope to get that bids in shortly. It'll be brought before you for approval, I believe, at the next board meeting. And then we'll get construction going after that. A big project in water and sanitation was the water tower maintenance and painting. You can kind of see the significant change with the before and after, but just not on the surface. A lot of interior metal work, and the pods for the cell carriers at the top of the tower were removed and reinstalled on a new railing for safer maintenance and operation for not only our employees, but also the cell carriers. And if any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
One addition that's to the great report is Eric and his team have taken the leadership to start the McHenry County Purchasing Initiative. We had a bid on tonight's agenda tonight, which was the first award through that McHenry County Working Group. As the board may recall, back in around November, we gave a presentation of the purchasing initiative that we've been a part of for the last 3-4 years to the county. Eric started the group with a number of public works directors, including Woodstock, Crystal Lake, Algonquin, Lake in the Hills, Huntley, and other communities, and now bids are coming out that are being awarded by a variety of McHenry County communities. So I thank you for that. Continues to be a leadership effort. One other item of note, sometimes other communities ask us for advice. Tomorrow, Eric is interviewing with a team at the City of McHenry, engineer candidates for their first village engineer position. Project engineer position. So we continue to try to take opportunities for leadership in the county.
Cool. Great job, Eric.
Eric?
Thank you, Eric.
Eric? Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One, and this is one you'll have to get back to me on. I'd like to know what pesticides we use and where they're applied in the village.
Sure.
And then secondly, I had asked a question about, do we have a ongoing program to detect ingress into our sewer system from the stormwater? Do we have a program that's going out looking for leaks, looking at those joints, looking at the manhole covers, where we have stormwater entering our sewage system?
Like a smoke testing program, or?
That's one of the ways. Yes, absolutely.
So
Yes.
for
We've done that before.
stormwater infiltrating into the sanitary?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We, I'll get back to you on both matters, certainly.
Okay.
What kind of things are being FOIA'd by Public Works?
Actually, nothing very commonly. That list of the service requests is for all FOIAs made, at least electronically requested to the
whole
village.
village?
So, yeah, they're not specific to
Oh,
Public
okay.
Works.
Yeah, I'm like you. I thought, well, we've got FOIAs for public works.
Yeah, that's just online. So, yeah, people call in or write them in as well.
Okay.
And that's just the admin FOIAs. The majority of our FOIAs are through the police department, police reports.
What's a FOIA, Jacob, for the scouts there?
FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act. So that's where an individual or a commercial entity may be looking for a public document. And so they're able to submit that request to the village, and then we'll fulfill it.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move to future agenda items and discussion by the village board.
I have a comment that I'd like to, or a statement I'd like to read.
Sure.
It's regarding the Meyer material extension, and I wanted to be succinct, so I apologize in advance by having to read this, but I think this way it'll present better. So Mayor and Board, over the past several months, a substantial amount of time and effort has been invested in the potential for a Meyer Materials mining extension. Since February 11, 2016, when the ZPA first heard the applicant's petition, new evidence has been introduced and changes to the mining restoration timeframe have been introduced as well. I'd like to recap for the board and the mayor those changes. The new evidence items. The current mining agreement has no specific provisions for a final grading plan, and the board at that time, on which I served, didn't place any plan into the agreement that would be binding. The proposed revisions outline a specific plan, one which Meyer will perform with their equipment at their cost, potentially saving taxpayers of the community hundreds of thousands of dollars in grading costs. The second new evidence item is the current mining agreement has no plans for a community park at the site. In the revised plan, a community park and significant cash donation is included to the park district. Again, the combination of those two things potentially save hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxpayer expenditures. Now, as far as changes to the mining and restoration schedule. With respect to the mining and restoration schedule, the petitioner is suggesting the following. The mining schedule will be shortened by 12 months. Currently, the date to stop is June 2020. The revised schedule stops mining June 2019. The restoration schedule likewise will be shortened. The current date to stop or to be completed with the restoration is June 2020. The revised date to stop and to be completely restored is October 2019. So in summary, I feel that what the ZPA was presented and reviewed 4 months ago has substantially changed. new evidence has been introduced, and the mining schedule has been shortened. So given the above, I respectfully would like to direct staff to move this petition back to the ZPA to consider these changes and ask that you, Chris, as village administrator, seek further considerations from Meyer. That's my statement on Meyer material. Thank you.
I would recommend that Attorney Simon comment on procedure here and what the board is being asked and thoughts from a legal standpoint.
So, as was identified with the rezoning application, when an application is denied, it is normally subject to a cooling off period for 12 months before it can be reconsidered, unless the applicant files a new application and presents evidence to the board that there's been a substantial change in circumstances from the original hearing. And then the board can consider whether the substantial change in circumstances has in fact come to pass, and they can adopt a resolution authorizing the refiling of the application. If it's refiled and you approve it, it would go back to the ZPA for a new public hearing. It would be considered like a new application.
So are you saying that, who would be the introducing entity to this concept, Meyer material?
Meyer would file the application and ask the board for approval of the resolution allowing them to move forward earlier than a year.
Well, then I believe the questions have been answered. It's up to the board to decide what to do with this.
How is it up to the board to decide when Meyer has to decide, or am I missing something?
Well, I believe it would be direction to me to talk to him about this. And what is requested is that, A, that has to occur, B, they have to agree, and C, then there's discussion about a resolution coming back to you
For the waiver.
at a future board meeting to send it back to zoning that would then need to be voted upon, as I understand this.
I'll support that.
Do you have to have direction from the board? I mean, the petitioner earlier, just beforehand, did not have direction from the board. The petitioner had information from you as to what her options are. It was her decision to withdraw. So Meyer does not need our approval, to the best of my understanding, to do that. They can do that unilaterally, can't they?
They can absolutely file a new application tomorrow.
Well,
If they file an application tomorrow, the next step would be for it to come before the village board to consider a resolution on whether or not to waive the 12-month cooling off period. And if you approve that resolution, it would be allowed to go back for the normal zoning process, starting with the ZPA.
But when these questions came up in the past days, from a legal standpoint, the status quo is that with the denial that occurred at the last village board meeting, that it was my understanding, there is a 1-year requirement before they could come back and refile. And it's my understanding that as part of this discussion tonight, that Meyer needs to want to submit then or on an abbreviated schedule. But if the theory is an abbreviated schedule, meaning sooner than a year, then the village board has to decide to allow that.
That's right.
Right. Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's understanding
But
this.
the village board doesn't have to allow that until they go through the process of.
No. If Meyer wants to go through the process again,
Right.
the first step is for them to file an application. Upon filing the application, the board will decide whether or not to waive the cooling off period. If you do, and you adopt that resolution, then they'd be authorized to go to the ZPA and start the application process.
And how does voting on that work in terms of, do we have to have a supermajority? Do we just have a majority?
It's a simple resolution,
Oh, okay.
so it's just a simple majority.
Well, I'll direct Trustee Clark to go back and talk to Myers about that.
Village administrator?
Trustee.
Check the
village
record,
administrator.
please. Thank you.
Village administrator.
I would need one one directive, be my
Well, has
thought.
Meyer Material contacted you about any of this? Do they have any other concessions or any reductions or anything that would?
I've attempted to keep the board briefed since the last board meeting as to any changes. And yes, they've been asking a series of questions, both through their counsel as well as through the Randy Willie, who you've met at past meetings. Second, and that's continued through this week. Second, they, subsequent to the board's action, May 17th, they had a deadline on June 1 that we're aware of where the mining schedule under the original agreement expired, and there was a progress payment per the original 2008 ordinance that was due the sum of $450,000 on June 1 of 16. That was paid on May 31st of 16. The second issue then, after that hurdle was addressed, was then on June 1, are they going to mine or not under the penalty provisions? Staff kept track of the mining site. They did mine. The agreement says if it's but one day of a month, it's $100,000. Meyer did not dispute that. I received today a check for $100,000 that's been deposited. And then, separately, the decision is, the discussion that I had with them is, okay, so we jumped over the June 1st hurdle, where are you folks at from now moving forward? And I have verbal discussion that I think is fair to share, not written agreement per se, but they've informed me that they intend to mine under the current agreement if there is no modification to what was already denied. They intend to mine through November 16 and pay $100,000 a month times 6. And they will not, and not surprisingly, will not give any kind of forecast to how they're going to handle calendar year 2017, 18, or 19 at all, because based on my inquisition of them, it's, as you can understand, very driven by the commodity supply rate of the gravel and their market for that. They clearly have a market for supply as much as they can pull out in calendar year 16, but they do not have clarity about commodity pricing beyond that. And so it's very possible they may decide to mine in future years, including the original agreement has after June 1 of 2018, the penalties double to $200,000 a month. It is not out of the range of possibility that, depending upon the depth of their tollway contracting, the lack of a recession, those sorts of issues, that they're considering paying the $200,000 penalty. They, of course, won't commit to that today. So the issue is just then, from past discussion, when does the mining end? When does the restoration end? And I can't answer that with the current, situation. And I think, and this is just the last couple of weeks of data, I don't think we'll know anything about 17 until probably March of 17. I think that they'll honor their word for this year under the current arrangement. And I've had inquiries from the Cary Park District about how to handle this multi-use path. I've answered it that, that's not been resolved yet, and I wanted to resolve the village's primary issues before we got into the subset issues. That is a subset issue, and it's not resolved yet. So the grading discussion that occurred, I brought up before this concept came up today in terms of sending it back to zoning. I asked about the grading one-page plan you saw in the board report that Eric and I created over the last couple of months vis-a-vis, the targets for grading. And I said, okay, so we acknowledge that, this is more specific than what you were given through ordinance in 2008 as an exhibit. Will you honor this? I mean, because, obviously we have unknowns regarding the mining and when it begins, ends, et cetera. We know that there's been testimony that there is a large spoil pile at the north end of the site that's much larger than ever planned, and it needs to move if there's going to be proper grading, if there's any future use. So I planted the seed with respect to the grading plan that we came up with, and I said, hey, it'd be nice if you still did this, even though you don't have to. And I didn't get real far yet, but I'm going to keep talking about that. We have spent a number of staff meetings looking at the 08, agreements again, trying to come up with a plan for what to demand and what the quality assurance, quality control will be on the back end with respect to the site, because regardless of what gets decided by this board or the next board, somebody's going to be concerned about how that land is left, especially when we're going to be having that potentially owned by the Village of Cary per the agreement. I have not had conversation with the Village of Algonquin as of yet, waiting to resolve these issues, and wanted to certainly understand, final direction on these things. All the time in the last couple weeks has been spent coordinating with Meyer. So that's my report.
Well, Chris, can I further?
Adam, I have a question for Adam. I guess this just seems to be expanding into a discussion that's not on the agenda. And I'm worried about OMA violation here, since we're asking for direction on an item that's not on the agenda.
I don't think you're taking any final action at this point. I think that Trustee Dudek asked for this to be brought up at a future agenda, and so there's just clarification as to how it would come back. But we're not taking any final action.
Okay, all right. Chris, the grading plan, I would like to get a copy of the very thick grading plan.
The 08 or the one now?
The original one?
Yeah.
Since it's being claimed that there wasn't that much of a grading plan.
Sure.
Other than that, no, I'm not in favor right now. I said to Administrator Clark and the mayor that if Meyer wants to come back with a new proposal, they're welcome to do that, and I'll entertain that at that time. But this just seems like a sort of backdoor method of getting it reheard, and I'm not favorable of that right now.
Comments? Well, this was new information for me, and I'm trying to think, how do we, I tend to agree with, I'd like to know what Myers, what they're willing to do. I mean, if there's something that, I agree with Trustee, I kind of agree with both sides here. I agree with Trustee Dudek that there were some substantial changes made that were not pertinent to the original ZPA. But on the other hand, I thought that once we made a decision to move forward, and I was already thinking, how are we going to make the best out of what we have? So, I don't know what direction are you looking for from us? Does there need to be some sort of a consensus, or?
If you want Meyer to consider changing the proposed agreement, then I would suggest that you suggest what elements are troublesome. And what I heard in past discussion has been the dates, and the concept of dates for restoration straying farther into 2019 than had been the goal was one theme that I heard. I didn't hear much about the economics. I heard discussion about the penalty provisions. What if they don't complete by the new dates? And we bumped up the penalty provisions in hard dollars on a one-off basis to $500,000 to address that. So I feel that was resolved. The Park District item had been resolved from their perspective, to Meyer's perspective. It was mostly about the time window vis-a-vis the residents and the commitment made back in 08 to these residents, and what would be done now. And what I think, I don't know that it's new information, but the reality is the commodity market is what it is, and we don't have date certainty to tell Fox Trail residents about when this will end. And I mean, that's part of the evolution of this since May 17th. So I mean, what I'm asking for is do you want me to talk to Meyer? Do you want to tell me some things that might be a benefit to the village that haven't already been negotiated? See if they're interested in that or not. And then should they submit and would they be given consideration for a 2016 re-review through zoning and village board of this with this present seated village board, as opposed to the current rules that, as I understand them, unless changed by Attorney Simon, means that it's a year off from now, and there are, at least as I understand, 4 positions on this board that are up for election. So I mean, the issue is, does this board want to hear this, or do you want to have the next board hear it, which is the 1-year rule that we have in the code?
I just don't understand why we wouldn't afford this corporate citizen the same courtesy that we would afford anybody else. I mean, they've invested millions of dollars into town, both through the homeowners assistance program, millions of dollars that they've given to the village for land conservancy, for police cars. I mean, part of their money rides around this village on a daily basis. And to not extend them the courtesy to at least go through the process of trying this, to me, is just absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah, but I don't think anybody is denying them that courtesy. That's what didn't I
So do
just
they-
say? If they want to bring a new proposal, bring it.
Then we should have a uniform vote here if we're allowing them to go ahead and make that decision if they want to or not.
Well,
But
just
that's
for
their
clarification, do they have, so it's, the onus is on them to petition us with revisions?
Yes.
Right.
And then at
They
that
can write any
particular
point.
time, we can vote on a resolution that would permit them to enter the
Yeah, or
process
nay.
once again.
Correct.
Right,
That's, yeah.
I agree.
So we have to communicate that to them. Correct? Yeah. Otherwise, they don't know.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
I'm up for that. I mean, if that's, remains to be seen. We have no idea what changes, if any, that
Right,
they'll
or they
make.
may not. May not.
Yeah, I understand. As we know, we have, and it's democracy, I mean, we have rightfully so split decisions at times. It's part of the job. And I mean, there's no need to cast votes today. We can't. I mean, as the point's been made, it's not allowed. But there needs to be a critical mass of support to go through this again from the standpoint of these residents, this board, the zoning board, the staff work that you want to invest in this to make it worthwhile. And I'm not trying to pick sides on Trustee Dudek's point, but I mean, I think it's important enough to make that known and that decision made. So only you can decide what that critical mass is.
You know, I think one important point is that this was Meyer's choice to bring that petition to us. They made the choice to extend it to 3.5 years, even though it was at 3 years when it went through the ZPA. So they made those choices, not us, and it got turned down. That's not my fault, per se. It's the decisions they made when they brought their agreement. So they can bring a new one if they want.
But I think that, Dave, you're in agreement, Kim, where you'll hear something if they have
I would
changes?
hear something. I did think overwhelmingly the opposition's coming from the Fox Trails residents who have to deal with it. So, I mean, their $50,000 contribution, from what I heard from residents in my neighborhood, they didn't feel was a very strong enough offer from Meyer. So I would like them to consider that.
Can I ask one follow-up in that's helpful to hear post feedback from the neighborhood? I haven't heard that. One of the issues that came up when this was publicized is we went searching for a homeowners association that may not exist. Do we have any knowledge as a board, or shall I send a letter to someone regarding how to handle that amount or any other additional amount from the standpoint of its deployment? As the details of that piece were fleshed out, the intention was it would be escrowed at the Village of Cary. It didn't appear that a homeowners association legally existed. And so my thought would be that if that was an element that was considered, we would somehow send letters out and try to select some way 5 or 8, folks to come in and help lead whatever that was to be spent upon with some public input. I think it's important to have that, especially if it's enhanced. What's that?
I agree. I think it's important to have that for buy-in from that community because, let's face it, they're the ones coming to the meetings, and
expressing concerns about dust, asthma, whatever was said at some of the last meetings.
So you're comfortable with talking to them about what some of these concerns are? Time frame is, I think, critical.
Yeah, unless I didn't hear from trustee McAlpine or trustee Kraus.
This is new information, so I don't really have any comments at this point.
I understand that, so I think I got clarification with what needs to be done, and I certainly want to afford any type of business the same opportunity that we do for anyone else. So I don't have a
Very
problem
good.
with you
Thank you.
talking with them about it. What happens from there happens.
All right, thank you. I will entertain a motion to adjourn into
Any
executive.
other future agenda items to talk about?
I don't know, are there? Mr.
Yes, by golly, there are. And one of them is, I want a vacant lot. I would love to have a vacant lot in the village of Cary to plant a garden so that we could have butterflies and other pollinators. And I've been talking about this since the beginning of March, and now it's already June. So we pretty much lost this planting year. And if we're going to plan for this garden to go into a vacant, unused piece of property, and I don't care where it is, do I have to have 6 votes or something to get this? What's holding it up?
Whose property are you? Our property?
Yes, the village property. A piece for a garden. I mean,
Dave, have you talked to the Conservation District?
yes, absolutely.
And can't,
They are ready to help us to
no, what I'm
plant it
saying
and
is
plant
put it
it.
on their land.
Oh, no.
Well,
No, I haven't asked them to put it on conservation land. They've already have their own efforts to do that. I'm talking about here in the village so that our residents in our, village can be involved in the solution to help this. The Conservation District already has their own things growing and going.
Couldn't they extend that to our village residents, though? Isn't the conservation districts within our village? So why couldn't they open that up? If we want the village, conservation districts do lie within our village.
Sure. But, so we would be helping them to tend their things. And we already advertise those opportunities. Look, guys, I'm looking for a place to put a $20,000 garden, a donated free garden for next year. That's what I want. I want a spot that I can dig up, and put stakes on and put a garden there.
Eric, do we have any space at the Public Works yard?
Come on, Eric. Give me some dirt.
I would have to evaluate our other future operations, particularly with the phosphorus project and then the treatment plant expansion. But I would just need to know the exact size and lighting conditions
Okay.
and soil conditions that would be needed, because that would impact whether it's at the plant or at a well site or other.
Yeah, at the plant would be great. There's space back
Second,
there.
And size.
I will, if this is being asked of me, I will talk to the Cary Park District. They might be.
No, I don't want to talk to them. They already have a community garden going that they,
I'm saying he might have some space for me that's better than what we can, because my concern is, you always have to think about adjacent residents.
yeah.
And that's why I asked about the yard.
Well, that's why I like down there. There's great spots down there for a garden.
I'd
And plenty of
suggest we look at
fertilizer.
this building.
That'd be probably optimal. We won't back you into that answer tonight, but that would be one we control.
That would be good.
If you just let me know, like I said, the
I will,
size
I'll
of the
give you the
area.
dimensions and, the acreage, absolutely, Eric. Thanks.
Anything else, trustee Chapman?
No, that's enough for tonight.
Okay, now I will entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss real estate purchase or lease, section 120/2C5, and closed session minutes review, 120/2C21.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Scouts, for coming.
Thank you, Boy Scouts.
Thank you. Thanks for presenting the colors. Did a great job.
Luckily.